She walks the night like a whisper wrapped in silk. The swish of her kimono, the echo of her wooden clogs, the faint scent of incense trailing behind her. To the hurried world, she's a shadow of another time. But to those who know, the geisha is not a relic. She's a guardian, a vessel of elegance, grace, and centuries-old art. The geisha is not merely a woman, dressed in layers of brocade and ivory makeup. She is a living archive of music, of movement, of ritual. She does not sell her body. She offers something far rarer in a world consumed by noise: attention, refinement, and presence. To understand the geisha, one must walk backwards through time, into Japan's Edo period, a time of isolation, strict social order, and the flowering of a cultural world called ukiyo, the floating world. In cities like Kyoto and Edo, entire districts emerged for a pursuit of pleasure, not crude indulgence, but the refined joy of beauty and conversation, tea and theatre, poetry and performance. This is where the geisha arose, not from brothels, as many Westerners believed, but from tea houses, music rooms, and stages. Curiously, the first geisha were men, taikomochi, jesters and musicians who entertained samurai lords. By the 18th century, women had taken over the profession, refining it into something deeper and more graceful. The geisha itself means person of arts. A geisha's training is an immersive experience. Young girls, often orphans or daughters of struggling families, entered okiyo, geisha households, to begin a journey of discipline, resilience, and refinement. They learned traditional dance, Nihon Buyo, classical instruments like the shamisen, complex tea ceremonies, sado, and the art of speaking without revealing or smiling, without submitting. The apprenticeship began as a shikomi, essentially a servant, then as a maiko, a dancing child. The life of a maiko was vibrant, colorful, and rigorous. Her appearance was elaborate, towering hairstyles adorned with seasonal flowers, long-sleeved kimono, crimson-collared undergarments, and platform sandals that added height and elegance to her gait. A full geisha, once initiated, was the epitome of subtle sophistication. Her movements slowed, her appearance more muted, her kimono simplified in color, but not in craftsmanship. It is said that a geisha can express entire conversations with the tilt of her head, the pause of her fan, or the way she pours a guest's tea. Contrary to the myth that fused geisha with prostitution, true geisha operated apart from yujo, legal courtesans of Japan's licensed red light districts. Geisha were entertainers, not sex workers. This distinction was deeply ingrained within her community and traditions. But Western colonialism, wartime occupation, and popular media blurred the lines. Following the Meiji Restoration in 1868, Japan opened its doors to Western influence. In this rush toward modernization, many traditional professions came under scrutiny. Still, geisha endured, perhaps because they symbolized a deeper, intangible national identity. But the greatest rupture came after World War II. As Allied forces occupied Japan, many women, desperate for survival, posed as geisha to attract American soldiers. They dressed the part, mimicked the mannerisms, and blurred the public's understanding of the real role. The term geisha girl emerged in the military slang, tragic distortion that clung to the West's imagination. Hollywood, too, contributed to the confusion. Films like Sayonara and Memories of a Geisha popularized the version of geisha life that was visually stunning but deeply misleading. They romanticized subjugation and often failed to distinguish between different categories of women in Japan's historical pleasure quarters. Today, only a few hundred geisha remain, compared to tens of thousands in their golden age. Most are concentrated in Kyoto's Hanamachi, or flower towns, districts like Gion, Pontocho, and Kamishishiken. Their world still survives, albeit quietly, like a candle flickering against a storm of modernity. Some geisha now maintain social media profiles to promote their performances and attract new patrons. Others teach workshops to tourists or collaborate with international artists. And while critics accuse these changes of commercializing or diluting the tradition, others argue they are necessary for survival. There is an ongoing debate within Japanese society about whether geisha culture empowers women or preserves outdated gender roles. Feminists are divided. Some see the geisha as figures of quiet resistance, women who carved autonomy through art in a patriarchal world. Others argue that the tradition traps women in antiquated ideals of femininity, obedience, and allure. The geisha is not a symbol of submission, but of mastery. She is not a caricature of femininity, but a craftsman, one whose tools are memory, discipline, and performance. She holds power not through confrontation, but through nuance. What can we learn from the geisha? We learn that power can be subtle, that beauty, when practiced with precision, becomes a language. We learn that culture, when cared for, can survive fire, war, and forgetting. And we learn that identity is not always loud. It can be painted softly, worn quietly, and passed down like a poem whispered between generations. In a world addicted to speed, the geisha reminds us of presence. In a society of endless scrolling, she teaches us how to look again, fully, deeply, with reverence. Her way of life tells us that mystery is not manipulation, but magic, and that art, when lived and breathed, can be a revolution in itself. Will the geisha survive the 21st century? Perhaps not in numbers, but maybe in symbolism. As climate change, AI, and geopolitics redefine human life, we may come to value what we lost in our race forward: ritual, mastery, and slow beauty. The geisha, in this sense, is not just a woman in a kimono. She's Japan's memory, and perhaps a lesson for the world.